Let's talk about the crisis at our doorstep in the United States. We have major issues happening across the Caribbean that will have an impact on what's going on inside the United States and for decades to come. We had a massive wave of migration coming from Haiti and Cuba back in the 1980s, which at the end of the Carter administration really triggered a wave of crime across the southeast of the United States, particularly Florida and Tampa and all that kind of stuff like that. This where you get shows like Miami Vice and all that. We really haven't seen such a crazy crime wave until just recently, as we've seen a lot of people coming across the southern border. But I want to talk about is the destabilization of Haiti as well as Cuba. Now, I haven't talked too much about Haiti on this channel because Haiti has been just an absolute train wreck for many, many years. I mean, like since before even the 1980s, right? It's just an absolute disaster. Haiti, their political government, and the people in Haiti have just not known anything better but gangs and all the sorts of things that come along with that. And when they brought that to the United States in the 1980s, it caused this massive crime wave. So we're going to be talking about that and a few other things along the way. So welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade, and I am coming to you from central Taiwan. I'm looking at some of the places where we may see the last stand of the Taiwanese army. I don't know if that's gunfire in the background or if that is fireworks. It probably is fireworks, but if it's gunfire, it's just training simulation. There is a large Air Force base just west of the city. Just west of the city, and so that is a major part of the city here too. So I'm going to be coming out with videos about what's going on here in Taiwan and what could happen here in the near future in Taiwan. So stay tuned for those. But regarding what's happening along the coast of the United States, the Caribbean, Haiti, as well as down in Cuba. Cuba has just had a number of protests, which we haven't seen there for almost a decade now. In Santiago, the second largest city in Cuba, they've had large-scale protests, and part of that was due to the fact that their chicken is rationed. They're getting once a month chicken ration, which is troubling right there. I mean, getting chicken once a month. I mean, chicken doesn't keep for a month, right? Hopefully you're freezing it or something like that. But the fact that they have food rationing happening there, power supply, they have power outages regularly, 4 hours or more per day. That's like up to almost South Africa levels of power outages. So Cuba is definitely riding the edge of disaster, and the people are finally just having had enough. Even though the penalties for rising up and protesting against the Cuban government are extremely grave, being disappeared, potentially offed by the government, tortured. These are regular things that happen under the Castro regime there, and yet the people are willing to risk that because of what is going on is so unbearable to the people there. And so just the fact that we're seeing these type of protests cropping up again in Cuba opens up the possibility for either a military investment by the United States going into Cuba if they see an opportunity, or if for whatever reason the president of the United States decides to just invade another country, which never happens. But Cuba is looking like it is starting to destabilize. We're seeing cracks at the seams. If that continues and we start seeing some real weakness there, that may open up the door for United States involvement in Cuba. Now, the United States already has a military base, Guantanamo Bay. There are troops there. There are Navy ships deployed there. But there would need to be a lot more soldiers committed to Cuba in order to rid the country of the Castro regime. And then we get over to Haiti, and Haiti is just an absolute disaster, like I said. And it's just like, how do you even fix that? Humanitarian aid has been going in for many decades and has not done anything. The corruption level, the lack of infrastructure, the lack of even an understanding of what a functional government would look like. If people can't even visualize something, it's hard for them to participate in it. It's hard for them to bring something to be. I'm right next to a Buddhist shrine as well. So I'm getting all sorts of background noise today. Birds chirping, massive gunfire, and then of course Buddhist shrines going off, doing their bells, waking up their gods. So Haiti. We brought in a lot of people from Haiti back, like I said, back in the 80s. Carter administration brought in just tons and tons of, they were supposed to be Cubans at first, but then they just kind of opened it up for Haiti. That's where we remember all the boats coming across. If they could land here, then they could stay here. And that's really what we're seeing at the southern border right now, which is if they can get in, which there's really nothing to stop them from getting in, then they can stay here. And we were seeing that before with boats, but the problem for Democrats is that the Cubans that have been coming to the United States have a tendency to vote Republican. And so that's why if you are a Cuban and you land on U.S. shores, you can't stay. But if you come up from South America across the southern border, you can stay. So does that make any sense whatsoever logically? Only if you start looking at it from a political conniving standpoint, then it makes absolute sense. So Cubans still who escape here, if they hop in their rafts and float across the deadly ocean and get here, they cannot stay here. They will be deported almost immediately. And that's where that's happening. And of course, Republicans are on board with that because, you know, don't believe people should be coming in. And the Democrats are like, okay, in that instance, you can deport them and we'll go along with it as well. And so everybody seems on board with deporting the Republican immigrants, but not deporting the Democrat immigrants. So all that to say, if Haiti continues to destabilize, there's definitely going to be a major appeal made for bringing a lot more people from Haiti into the United States for humanitarian reasons and such like that. But really what needs to happen is Haiti needs to be stabilized. And how is that ever to be done? And really, the only way that could really be done is by the Haitians themselves. A United States task force coming in might bring a temporary sense of peace, but establishing a foreign government, a foreign established government is just not the answer. The Kenyans are deploying UN peacekeeping troops. I'm not sure if they're there yet, but they will be there shortly. But that is not really going to solve the issue anyway either. The UN does not have the authority to use force to protect people. And until the people really get so sick of everything that's going on and they rise up and try to install their own government. But the problem is that the government that they would install would almost certainly be so corrupt that they would just be just as bad as the government that they've had. And so either they have a very, very weak government that can't really do anything, or they have a powerful government that's super corrupt and super evil that will use force to keep people in check, even beyond what they ought to. So what's the situation to be done there? And that's one that, what can you do? I'd like to have the answers to that. We couldn't stabilize Afghanistan. We couldn't stabilize Iraq. We couldn't stabilize, you just go down the list. Places in the around the world that the United States has tried to bring democracy and freedom to. Libya is still an absolute disaster. Syria is still an absolute disaster. Everywhere the United States has stuck its fingerprints on in the last 2 decades has been nothing short of a disaster. There's no success stories, there's no victory stories out there. Either we've gone into a country that had a stable government in the first place and destabilized it, or in the very few situations where we've gone in to assist a stable government, the stable government was able to hang on and go on, like in Taiwan, right? Taiwan, they've had a stable government, so the United States isn't responsible for that, even though the United States is now providing military assistance. So all those things to say, We have a lot to look at in the Caribbean. And are we going to see a Caribbean spring? Are we going to see governments overthrown? We've already seen the Haitian government overthrown. Are we going to see the Cuban government overthrown? Are we going to see other countries upset with their governments in Central America? El Salvador has decided that they're done with things, and they just say, like, we're just going to lock up all the prisoners and lock up all the criminals. And that's been their that's what they've been doing. And liberals the world over have been crying bloody murder because it's awful. You can't just lock up criminals. And El Salvadorian government has absolutely done that. And when I was in El Salvador not too long ago with my father, we were traveling through El Salvador and just seeing how tight the security was, how great the security was, and just realizing how dangerous the city of San Salvador and how dangerous the country of El Salvador was truly kind of frightening, and for rightfully so. And they have cleaned that city up, they've cleaned that country up, and it's been a dramatic turnaround because the people just finally said, no, we're done with this. We're not going to tolerate this anymore. And we need that in the United States, where the United States people will rise up and say, no, we're not going to tolerate this anymore. We're going to put somebody in like Rudy Giuliani, and we're going to clean up the streets, and we're going to get things back to the way they ought to be. And we're going to see if this election period in the United States leads us in that direction. But for Haiti, I don't know if there is much hope for them. But you can always pray, always hope. And really what they need is they need some godly or high character leadership that rises up, that people get around, that stays pure to principles of free and fair, open government, and the passing of power, allowing government structures to be held accountable for the things that they do and the crises that they create, which is a very rare trait. We can't even say how crazy it is that George Washington served for 2 terms as President of the United States and refused to run for a 3rd. That is just unheard of. I think we take that for granted. I know everyone today wants to bash on George Washington for owning slaves, but he turned down power. He turned down a lot of power when he had the opportunity to have it. And we're not going to see that in Cuba. We're not going to see that in Haiti unless something very unusual or strange happens. We're not going to see that in the United States either. But the United States has a tradition where the people expect and actually legally hold politicians accountable that presidents don't serve for more than 2 terms anymore. Now that that's enshrined in the Constitution, that is something that can't be done, even if a politician wants to continue to run, right? Now we just need to get that into the Constitution for term limits for senators and congressmen too. That should help things a little bit. It won't fix everything. It'll take power out of individuals' hands and put it into more party structures. And yeah, there'll be even more backroom dealings than there were before, but that is kind of some of the stuff that you have to kind of deal with. All right, friends, we got crises at our doorstep in the United States, down the Caribbean. We're going to keep an eye on what's going on in Haiti as well as in Cuba, as well as any other countries that may start having issues. Haven't heard too much coming out of Jamaica or the Dominican Republic. Relatively stable governments right now, but there is a lot of poverty in both those countries as well. All right, friends, thanks so much for joining us. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.